Oh, these are Mark Kerr. I'm getting ready to do an interview right now for Hannibal TV. I'm a two-time UFC champ. Stay tuned.
This is Hannibal from thehannibaltv.com, and I'm with former UFC champion, the star of the Smashing Machine movie, possibly a character on who The Rock is going to play in the coming year or two, possibly in a future movie. The Smashing Machine himself, Mark Kerr. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, man. Surprise, surprise. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing really good. Surprise, I didn't expect you to be in town, pocket dialing me, and then, so it's all good, man. Glad to actually meet up with you in person.
Well, to start this, it's great to meet you in person, and you're looking very healthy. How are you feeling these days?
I'm feeling actually really good. We were talking earlier about why you're in Arizona, and besides it being freezing cold in Texas. So I actually got what you got the other day with stem cells and stem cell shots in my feet, and it's 100 million times better physically for me. The bottom part of my legs and feet are healing, and they've stabilized, which is a really, really, really good thing. It enables me to actually, I was saying earlier to you that I was on a mountain bike for a couple hours today, and last year this time couldn't even imagine it.
You also recently overcame COVID, which you caught back in January. How was that experience?
It was interesting. I mean, it's just, what the crazy part is? It has, what I'm saying to you is it has such a different effect on everybody. And my immune system, the initial attack of the virus, my immune system handled it really well. It lingered really for about, I'm going to say for between 14 and probably 18, 19 days, and had these residual headaches that were just brutal, but my respiratory system got attacked, but like I said, my immune system handled it fairly well. So I'm just fortunate. I know not everyone has a story that's even close to that, but I'm fortunate.
What is your opinion on that whole situation now? Arizona's pretty open right now with the lockdown compared to some other states.
I think it's about time. It's just one of those where everybody knows what the implications are. Like I seen you earlier, the gentleman that I help out and live with, he's 80 years old, and I gave him the virus, and his immune system had a really good response to it. It started attacking the virus right away. He did what most people do. He slept 18, 19 hours a day. And no real big complications. His immune system and his respiratory system, pretty much stayed on top of it the whole time. I just want to see everything opened up. It's long overdue.
I did an interview with Frye a couple of days ago, and he seemed a little angry at you over something. I don't know if it's that you're getting the movie made by The Rock and not him, but do you have any idea what that heat could be about?
No, did he expand on it at all?
When I asked him to expand, he drank out of a horse trough, spit the water out.
So the only other thing that Frye and I have had, close quarters on was when Brock Lesnar.
Yes, he mentioned that.
When Brock came out of basically Brock was trying to make the Minnesota Vikings, and he made it down to the last cuts, and I had crossed paths with Brock years and years earlier, and I said to him, just in passing, I said, "Hey, dude, if you ever decide you're going to get into fighting, just look me up. I'll be pretty easy to find." And Brock came down to Arizona. He actually went down and saw Frye first. I got contacted by Brock's lawyer and says, "Hey, Brock wants to get a hold of you." I had a conversation with Brock. He said, "Here's what I'm going to do." And he came down here. He had Frye evaluate him, and he had me evaluate him. And then they kind of figured out between us two which person he wanted to come up and help him establish a camp and a training routine in Minnesota. And so if Don's jealous because he picked me over him, that's like, it's almost like a date. It's like a chick picking one dude over another. But it wasn't. It literally, he was like, dude, Brock was saying, it's difficult because both of you guys have different qualities in different areas where you specialize in. And I think for Brock, he identified more with me because of my wrestling background and Brock's wrestling background, collegiate wrestling background. And so I went up to Minnesota for a month, and Brock and I actually ended up not on good terms. At the time I was probably not on my best behavior, and had showed up to Brock's morning workout at 6 in the morning, and I hadn't been to bed from the night before. And and Brock was so far beyond that. That was something that he was doing years before that. At his house, at his place in Minnesota with his wife, his kids, that was no place to bring that kind of shit. And I brought it to his doorstep, and we had a conversation, and he decided it would be in my best interest and his best interest if we just part ways. And that was, I was up there for about a month, and he had set up just an incredible facility. He had gotten a boxing coach, he had gotten, training partners and everything, and that was when he was getting ready for the UFC. So, if anything, I owe him an apology.
What was the training like with him for the time that you did it for that 1 month?
Oh God, it was brutal. And part of this is like Mark Coleman. Mark Coleman, where he lacked in talent, he made up for in work ethic. Brock had talent, and he made it up in work ethic as well, where he just blew by everybody. And he would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that's when he would expect me to be there, be ready to work out. We would do sprints up and down the driveway. He lived about a half mile from the main road. And then we would go in the gym, start working out in the gym, and he would do what he needed to do during the afternoon, and then we'd have another practice, if not another 2 practices. So, he worked hard, man. There's no doubt about his work ethic, and, he's a talented guy.
How did you match up with him on the practice mats, considering you were a lot more experienced at that point?
Honestly, man, he was still close to 300 pounds. I couldn't move him. I just couldn't move him. Plus, at the time when he came out, probably have to look up year-wise. I had been removed from fighting for probably about 4 years, so I wasn't as big and as muscular as I was, and as in good a shape. And Brock was still. I saw a picture of him, and you know what this is going to look like, where he's got his little tight black, shorts on, and he's like 325 pounds with a 6-pack of abs.
Yeah.
He was just a freak of nature, and so he wasn't quite that big, but he was a big boy.
How old were you when you started in amateur wrestling?
Oh my gosh, man! My first amateur wrestling event was when I was 5.
Wow.
And my mom had lied about my age because it was like 8. I think age groups was like 7 and 9, or it was like 6 to 8 or something. And my mom just kind of wrote in my age, and I ended up taking 3rd. I remember having this little tiny trophy where I ended up taking 3rd. But I didn't take wrestling serious again until I was like 14 years old.
And what made you get into it more seriously then?
I lived in Iowa. I moved from Ohio to Iowa. I went to Bettendorf, where Pat Miltich went to school, and they had an incredible wrestling program. And it's almost like if you're gonna play football for Bettendorf, you had to wrestle, or vice versa. If you're gonna wrestle, you had to play football. They had state championship programs in both of them.
Okay. Did you play football as well?
I did. It's kind of funny. My son asks me this question all the time. He's like, "Why didn't you choose wrestling?" Yeah. It's just I got scholarship offers to the mid-majors like University of Toledo, Central Michigan, Kent State, Ball State, and I wanted to concentrate on one sport, so I took the wrestling scholarship to Syracuse instead.
What were some of the highlights of your college career in Syracuse, and how did you like living in Syracuse?
Oh, Syracuse was cold. It was cold. Beautiful city. Beautiful city if you look at it during the summer. Incredible. Really fun to be up there near a lot of stuff. You're about 5 hours from New York City. You're right near the Finger Lakes. You're right. Actually, you're like 4 hours or less to Toronto, Canada, which is a blast. Niagara Falls, Lake Oswego, Lake Ontario. You know, just a lot of stuff to do up there in the summer. Wrestling wise, obviously, when I won an NCAA championship for them, that was the crowning achievement of a lot of years of frustration. You know, I end up in the NCAA tournament. My final NCAA record is 5 wins and 4 losses. So all it takes is 1, right? And so my friends would ask me, it's like, hey, would you have rather been like a 3-time All-American or an NCAA champ? And obviously my answer is like an NCAA champ. You know, you carry that with you like a world champ, UFC champ, Abu Dhabi champ. You carry that with you no matter what happens. It doesn't matter what station you are in life, you're always going to be an NCAA champ or a World Cup champ.
Did they give you any money when you were wrestling for Syracuse for food and stuff?
They did. They did. They do have, we would get these things called Shine cards. You had this place called the Shine, which is like a student center cafeteria. Yeah. And so on the card, every semester you would get loaded up X amount of dollars, depending on what your scholarship was. But it was a food card. You couldn't buy anything else with it. So it sustained you. If you spent all your money in the first 2 months, you're borrowing and stealing off the rest of the wrestlers to get food. You know?
So what made you go into the martial arts aspect of fighting? Obviously you had the wrestling background.
Yeah.
Was there any thoughts of the Olympics or anything?
96, I originally ended up in Arizona trying to chase an Olympic dream. I moved out here from Syracuse. I was assistant wrestling coach at the time. I quit that position to move out here to train for the 96 games in Atlanta. And that was kind of the impetus that started me on the journey where I ended up, doing MMA. It just happened to bump into a guy, and Dan Sever knows this guy. It's a guy named Rich Hamilton. And Rich Hamilton knew Dan, watched Dan get in the UFC. Rich Hamilton says he's responsible for it, and Dan would probably say differently. But Don Frye, Rich Hamilton claims he got Don Frye into, and then Mark Coleman, and then me. So the ones that are factual is he got Mark Coleman a contract, and he got me a contract with the UFC. That's factual. Dan's relationship with Richard Hamilton and Don Frye, that's up for them to clear up. So I don't know.
So had you had much grappling training or stand-up training by that point, or you just wanted the money? No,
I just wanted the money, man. As a wrestler, Dan and Don can, any wrestler can tell you, you're doing it for the love of it. You're not obviously doing it for the money. And back then, the year that I quit coaching, between USA Wrestling, the grants that you got from the Olympic Committee, and everything else, I was making like $25,000 a year. So when someone offers you to fight in the UFC and you make $25,000 in one night, it's like, okay, where do I sign up? You figure one of two things. You figure you're going to have the moxie to suck it up and fake it basically through the areas where you don't know what you're doing out there, right? You're going to have the athleticism or the conditioning just to exhaust a person.
So how was your first experience in an MMA cage?
It was brutal, to be honest. Even though I won the fight, even though I beat Paul Varlins, who just passed away, I posted on the Instagram, everyone remembers their first, it's like, you're going to remember the first person you pro wrestled against, right?
Yeah.
You're going to remember, it's like, he's my first,
Yeah.
And so it was scary because I just didn't know. And, a lot of what happened out there when I was in the ring was just autopilot. It was like totally reactionary. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew enough to get the job done. And so by the time I ended up making it to Fabio Gugel, that's when it was real. You know, Fabio Gugel's like he's a fighter.
Yeah.
You know, he does like, even though it's jiu-jitsu, it's fighting. You know, and so he was out there to take my head off. And that was brutal. That was 15 minutes of just banging.
And Don Frye brought up that he didn't necessarily believe that you were afraid to fight because you've said in the past that you had a fear of fighting. So.
I haven't hung out with Don Frye enough for him to clarify my own thoughts, right? And I don't want to start a beef with Don. He's a good dude, but so genuinely, and this is the absolute truth.
Yeah.
Like before my first professional fight, I had been in 2 fights. 2. And I literally, one where it was like 5-on-1 of my college roommate my senior year.
Yeah.
And the other one was when we got in like a wrestler defend your wrestling teammate brawl and I punched the dude in the mouth. Other than that, I was a spectator. It was like I'd make sure that like if you had a bunch of dudes fighting, I'd make sure that like 4 dudes didn't jump on one guy. Yeah. I would step in and just start sorting things out, not fighting, right?
Yeah.
So like legitimately when I get in the ring for the first time, I don't have like Mark Coleman's been in a shit ton of street fights.
Right.
Kevin Randleman, he was in a bunch of street fights, a bunch of bar brawls, right? I wasn't the dude jumping in bar brawls. I was like, as big as I was at the time, I was like, you know what? If I get in a bar fight, you know what they're going to do? Go to their car, get a gun, come in and shoot me.
Right.
They're going to take one look at me and go, no fucking way, They're going to be like, Billy, go get the gun.
When did you first meet Mark Coleman?
1989.
And did you guys get along
No,
right away?
1988, I'm sorry, 1988.
Okay.
88. He was a senior in college, and I was a freshman.
Did you guys connect right away?
We were competitors, so no.
Oh. Really?
We were competitors. Mark was, God, man, when he was competing, he was just, you know, now people don't understand what he was like, before. Now you can't. Now Mark loves to talk, right? If you get him in the right mood, he'll talk for hours on end. When Mark was competing, it was completely opposite. He was stone cold. You know, it's really funny. So prior to the 1992 Olympics, we were training in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Mark Coleman and I were roommates when we were still wrestling. And I don't know him that well, and they put us 2 together because I'm wrestling 198 pounds, he's wrestling 220. We're training partners, but not competitors, because we were competitors, we won't be room together, right?
Right.
And so this gives you an idea of Coleman. So he's sitting on the bed, and I'm on the other bed, and I hear him mumbling, and he's sitting there, he's going, "Where's some fucking motherfuckers?" And I was like, so I hear it, and it goes away, and then I hear, "Goddamn motherfucker, son of a bitch, motherfucker," and then it goes away again, and then the third time I hear it, I sit up and I go, "Hey, who are you cussing at?" Because I think he's cussing under his breath at me.
Right.
And I go, are you cussing at me? And he goes, "No. The remote control fell on the ground. I'm too lazy to pick it up, and I hate what's on TV right now." So,
yeah.
So he literally is cussing at the remote control because he's under the covers, and the AC is all tuned up, you know, and he's relaxing, getting ready for the afternoon's training session, and he's cussing the remote out because the remote slipped off the foot of the bed and it's on the floor, and he doesn't want to pick it up. And he hates, I think it was like Judge Wapner or whatever on TV, and he's cussing out the remote and the TV.
Did you ever witness any of his street fights back when you guys were hanging out?
Some of them are legendary, like Ohio State, like the Ohio State Bar District. When you go down there, some of them are legendary.
Really?
I mean, with Randleman and him, they were like the 2-man wrecking crew.
I'm surprised that anyone would even try and mess with them.
You know, when you're drunk, You know, when you tie on that level of stupidity, you know, you'll go ahead and try stuff on that doesn't fit. And like Mark Coleman and Kevin both wouldn't fit.
You used to be a partier, obviously. You overcame all that. When did that start? Was that from high school, or was that
you know, from high school it was a lot. I smoked a lot of pot in high school. You know, but whenever it was like wrestling season or football season, football, I drank beer. You know, wrestling, I didn't do anything because it was just like a sacred, you know, journey. It was really weird how I treated wrestling, completely different than football. Football was more Neanderthal. Wrestling was more like a sacred thing because it was just me. So wrestling, I didn't do anything. And then in high school, out of high school, going into college, didn't party a lot. Treated it really seriously. My senior year, you know, I finally had a couple of beers during wrestling season, which I had never done before. And then all the way up until I moved out here, training for the Olympics, everything, I really wasn't a big partier. And then after age 27, and I started fighting, that's when all that started picking up.
just because people would buy you drinks or want to go out with you?
It's a completely different lifestyle.
Okay.
You know, even in the areas you hang out in pro wrestling,
yeah,
you know what that lifestyle is.
Oh, yeah.
It's just completely different, you know, completely different, you know.
How were the ladies? Were they there?
I just had this conversation, well, some of this with my son, and it's just like, I said, you just don't understand. You just don't, you know, because he calls me goofy and weird, you know.
Yeah.
Like, Dad, you're goofy, stop, you know, because it's just one where, you know, that kind of lifestyle, if you want to abuse it, you can.
Yeah.
And you can go excessively where you can either have one or the other. You can have, or you can have it all. You can have money, drugs, women, sex, you know, all of that stuff. Or you could have, you know, sex as your giddy up or whatever it is, you know. And I modestly did, you know, had my flings with the women, you know, and then excessively, you know, partied and, you know, tuned it up.
I guess you were the UFC champion, and they just wanted a piece of you.
Yeah, oh, in Japan it was bad.
Oh yeah, worse in Japan.
Yeah, they just have a hero worship for a lot of their, you know, a lot of their like pro wrestlers, mixed martial artists, pro athletes, you know, all of that. It's like a hero worship culture. You know, things have changed a little bit there, but back in the, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, it was incredible.
Did the Japanese mafia ever take you out when you were over there? Because they're known for sponsoring dinners and so forth.
Yeah, it was. So the original Pride company, the production part of it was called KRS.
Yeah.
And the guy that owned KRS was a guy in Japan. You called him Mr. Ishizaka. In his real name, he signed all his documents, Kim Duk-soo. He was Korean.
Okay.
But you know, if you were anything but Japanese blood, you had to have a Japanese name to do business.
Yeah.
Really successful guy with Plinko parlors and stuff like that. He was a gentleman that, for whatever reason, took a huge liking to me. And so every time that I would go there, he would request that I would come a week early. So I normally flew over a week early before the fight. So I'd have to fly over there 2 weeks before the fight, because the first like 5 days I'd have to go and hang out and drink and party with him. And then I would just get back into my training routines and get ready for the event. So
it's too bad he wouldn't do that after the fight.
Oh God, yeah.
That's bad timing.
It's really bad timing. So to give you an idea, so when they had a K1 kickboxing event in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And when they had that event, Mr. Shizaka came over for that event. I was not allowed to be photographed with him in public. I wasn't allowed to be seen with him in public. I wasn't allowed to have dinner with him. I wasn't allowed to have any association with him at all publicly.
Why?
Because I think the Japanese promoters were trying to get a foothold in Vegas. And so my thinking was, if they did any investigating at all for the money behind the K1 event, that's really easy. they did any investigating at all for the people behind the K1 event and find out they were mafia tied, or that the fighters were friendly with them in that capacity, I think it would have really hurt their chances of having something. So even Pride had their event here when Cole fought the Emperor, Vader.
Oh, Vader or Emilio.
Yeah, Cole fought him in Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was Pride's last event before they sold out to the UFC.
I see.
Yeah.
Did you ever get a K1 offer?
No, I got pro wrestling offer. We had talked about this earlier a little bit. So, so at the point where I accepted a pro wrestling offer, it was orchestrated by Antonio Inoki.
Okay.
His son signed me with a pro wrestler named Hashimoto. Hashimoto's dead. Hashimoto was kind of the George Foreman-like character in Japan. You know, always had, you know, big Japanese guy.
Yeah.
Always like eating something, like George Foreman. You know, George Foreman made light of him being a huge Jew.
Yeah.
Right? So he actually got a huge deal for me. I'd never done pro wrestling in Japan, and it was, you know, it was over, my first contract was over 400 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. And the part about it which blew everyone away, they had to come up with half of it before my second event. So I could do one event, they paid me a certain amount. Second event, they had to pay me half amount, and then they had to pay almost the whole contract, even before the contract was 30% over.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So was that better than fight money for you in some respects?
In some respects, because it was easy money.
Yeah.
You know, it was easy money. The last event I did before the company folded, so they paid me.
Was that Heroes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So they paid me 75% of my contract, and they only got 4 shows into a 10-show kind of card they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And so the last event I did was in Osaka with Animal and Hawk, and it was a guy named Tom Howard.
I know him.
We did a tag team event. You'll have to look it up. It's got to be somewhere on film. We did a tag team event, and I don't remember who put who over. I don't remember the specifics of it, because at the time I was still partying a ton. You know, and all the promises you say like, I'm never going to do this and have beers before. You know, I had beers before I got in the ring and all this other stuff.
Well, for wrestling, sometimes it doesn't matter.
No, sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it could help.
It actually did. It actually did. Because we were hitting these high spots.
Yeah.
We were hitting these high spots, and Tom could do this like helicopter spinning back kick.
Yeah.
And we had timed it where he's going to end up in the apron. You know, he's going to end up not on the apron, but in the corner.
Yeah.
And he did this helicopter spinning kick where they were supposed to tag in the guy. He's supposed to duck under, just get in the ring, and Tom was just supposed to miss him. And we couldn't make it happen in practice. We just couldn't get the timing right. But Tom and I had drank before I did it, and sure enough, man, he get in the ring in front of a good-sized crowd, and he hits it. Something all week long he ain't been able to do.
Did Rick Bassman have anything to do with your contract?
Yeah. At a point when I was still fighting, though, when Rick was involved. Rick has always been kind of around the periphery of a lot of different things, and you know, I'm still actually really good friends with Rick to this day. You know, we get together with a good men's group, you know, and stuff like that. So he's gone through hell, you know, and he's still surviving, which is an amazing thing.
He set up Mark Coleman's work shoot. Did you ever get any offers like that from him?
Yeah. And then, God, man, Rick came up with a bunch of stuff. You know, I probably could have stopped fighting and got into pro wrestling if I had just listened to Rick a little bit more, what direction he was trying to point me. because he had enough ties and enough connections. You know, I have a really cool picture of my son when my son was like 3 with John Cena. Okay. And Rick had got me tickets here, and I didn't understand that Vince runs a really tight like locker room when they come into a city, so he doesn't want a bunch of people back there, everyone snapping pictures and slapping asses, right?
Yeah.
And so I had my son in my arms. I was like, hey John, I had flagged him down not knowing if he knew me or not, and I was like, hey, you mind taking a picture with my son? So he's got a picture with my son, and then he's got a picture of before Brock got into fighting. He's got a picture of Brock. And so just kind of one of those cool things. We have his little star-studded, little picture book.
Did you have any serious talks with WWE at any point?
I think I got more. Yeah, I had talks about, I think they understood that I had a little bit of a drug problem at the time. And the conversations I had with them were, this is chess, not checkers. So if you're going to step into this league, you can't have any of those weaknesses basically poking through. Because with the travel schedule and the work schedule, there's no way you're going to be able to keep it up. No way you're going to be able to keep it up. That was the conversation, was basically like, if you get clean and you get sober, come back and see us.
Let's say after this movie comes out where The Rock is playing you and they made you an offer to come in for a match or two, would you do something like that?
Yeah, for sure. That would be excellent. Can you imagine me against Rock in real life?
That would actually
Rock
be cool.
plays like he plays me on TV. And we fucking go. I don't think they can pay him enough money. I really don't.
No, he's
beyond
so
that.
rich.
He's so beyond that.
But that would be interesting. The real.
Oh God, would that be fun? Would that be? Oh my God, you could build that thing across the board. Oh my God, that would be awesome.
What's the status of that now? Is COVID still slowing it, or?
Yeah, so after they ended up, so he just filmed Red Notice. He just filmed like the Rock Years, the one that's on NBC.
Yeah.
So that was filmed because actors play him. He's not in it. It's his life story. So his production company had a lot to do with that. So we're looking at this thing actually still having a chance at the end of this year to get filmed and be a 2022 release. In like I don't know if I talked to you about it. Like now, you make Avengers Endgame, you're seeing a $200 million movie in the movie theater, right?
Yeah.
You make a $60 million movie, you're watching it on Netflix.
Right.
That's the paradigm which has shifted, right? So, any of the Marvel, any of the huge movies are going to be in the movie theaters. Movie theaters are going to be completely different. You're not going to have a 14 or 18 plex.
Yeah.
You're going to have like a 6-plex. So it'll be simultaneously released on a bunch of different platforms. Netflix is the one that's going to be the one that's going to, sponsor it and have it on their platform, be the distributor of it, all of that.
Are you going to be there as a consultant throughout the filming?
Yeah, which I'm excited about. And that was talked about from my first conversation with DJ The Rock and his agent, and everything was like, hey, this is what we're setting up for you. We'll figure out what title you want. If you want associated producer, if you want executive producer, or however you want it, and we'll make it fun for everybody involved.
Have you read the script yet?
No, I haven't. That's the last one. That it's funny. This was just asked the other day. Even if I had objections, in it, it's just like he's doing my life. He's on my life story. He can do what he wants, But he's gracious enough and accommodating enough from the conversations I've had with him that he would listen. He wants to do it justice, and he wants to do me justice.
What are you going to do differently this time if that gives you, which I can't see it not happening, another jolt of fame?
You know, lessons learned is that, you know, fame was never about, it should have, if I would have taken the focus off of fame being about me, you know, fame was about an opportunity that I could have given my family, and I could have given my wife, you know, just at a lifestyle and an opportunity to experience things that they would not have been able to experience, you know, and I focused all of that on me, like what it does for me, and having that kind of attitude, it just brought a lot of misery with it, because it, you know, me was never enough, it was never enough, and you know, it caused a lot of issues because I just didn't understand how powerful that was.
Are you remarried now?
No. Nope. So, you know, I have a 16-year-old son that occupies, you know, quite a bit of my time, and then he's the one that gave me COVID, by the way. So he gets his driver's license and a car before Christmas. So he goes from February of last year, March, February, when COVID really started ramping up, all the way until he gets his driver's license. So he didn't pass anything to me. He didn't give me a virus. He wasn't a carrier, all of that. He gets a driver's license and a car, and within a week, he gives me COVID.
Wow.
Yeah. And he gave me he does this number. He goes, "Oh, by the way, Dad, I lost my taste and my smell like 3 or 4 days ago." And I was like, "Oh my God, dude." I go, that would have been like really good information, like the day it happened. So we had him tested. He was positive, and then obviously I was positive, and my buddy Richard, he was positive, and anybody we were in close proximity with was positive. So
did they give you any medication, or did they tell you just take it easy?
Just take it easy. They said, we went to, like I was saying to you, we went to Mayo Clinic, and they're absolutely surgical in how they handle it. It's, you know, they don't ask for insurance, they don't ask for any of that, man. They're there just to diagnose and let you know what's going on. I had my results within 6 hours after I took the test, and it was absolutely fantastic.
What was the catering like backstage difference between UFC and Pride? Some fans wanted to know.
You know what, which is even crazier is in Japan, it was a lot of unfamiliar foods. So when you're in Japan, the one thing that I like about it, they have a lot of fresh food, like prepare it in front of you. Like when you do teppanyaki, right? They make the food in front of you. They have noodle places where they make the food in front of you, all of that. And then their catering is something a little different because a lot of the stuff is sea-based, right? So they have like oysters, and they have this and that. And before you fight, you're not going to have oysters and shellfish, and so the UFC was better, but in those days that I did the UFC, it was like sandwiches, but it was stuff I recognized, so I consider it better.
What was winning the UFC championship like for you?
Oh, for me at the time, it was huge. Because it did a couple different things. It gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me confidence that I didn't know that I had, that I could fight, right? Because like I told you, it's like I'm not a big street brawler or bar brawler. So it gave me a lot of confidence that I could fight, and then it validated me. So it was a big deal. It was a big deal.
How did it affect your training? Because a lot of some people will kind of slack off once they become champion. So
the one thing, after UFC number 15, the one thing it did, it actually reminded me that if I wanted to be good at this, that I needed to go figure out who was the best available trainers or training partners to me. And that's when I partnered up with Boss Root and Marco Huaz, Oleg Tatarov, and Pedro Hizo. That's where I went out to California, and I just said, even though I've been in a fight, in a ring, and professional, I don't know I have no clue what I'm doing. And so those guys kind of brought me under their wing, especially Boss. brought me under their wing, just said, hey, listen, here's where you need to focus. This is where you're good at. This is what you need to do. And it was the best thing I ever did in my life.
And you said before Abu Dhabi was almost more of an accomplishment than UFC. Could you explain that?
Abu Dhabi was a lot more inclusive. It had guys from Russia, guys from the United States, guys from Brazil. It had guys from all over the world. So when you're competing against in an international field like that, for me it validated it more. Because when you're fighting in the UFC or fighting in Pride, you're fighting against one person, right?
Yeah.
So over at Abu Dhabi, to win an event, I had to win 5 just to win my weight class, and then I had to win 4 to win the Open, and then the next year I could be in the super fight. So it was I had to win 9 bouts to win the all around.
Do you still talk with Rico Rodriguez?
Oh, that just came up. No, and that's something where I have to reach out to him. It's long overdue.
What happened in that Fujita fight where you looked slimmer and you had shaved head and everything?
Yeah. So prior to the Fujita fight, I had just gotten done with an Abu Dhabi tournament 5 weeks before that, and so that training style for Abu Dhabi, that thinned me out. I had to be in a lot better conditioning just because of the 9 bouts that I did over there, and I couldn't put the weight back on. And at the time I was just starting to use for the first time growth hormone, and the growth hormone pulls a lot of sugar out of your body when you use it, and so I didn't understand that when I got in the ring, I bled out all my sugars.
What's the difference between growth hormone and steroids anyways?
Okay, so I'll explain it like this. So you have something called androgenics, which are testosterone, or androgen. They affect your hormonal system. You have anabolics, which affect your muscles. They're directly related to how your muscle builds and grows, right? And then you have growth hormone, which is like an engine. It regulates stuff. So when you add growth hormone in, it's gonna kick in your metabolism. It's gonna speed up the way your body synthesizes proteins and turns it into muscle and stuff like that. So it's an engine that drives those 2 different systems, right? So growth hormone, I didn't understand a lot about it at the time that I was using it, and that kind of contributed to what happened in the Fujita fight. I lost is what happened, and he beat my ass, but on the other side I was doing something I shouldn't have been doing.
Did you find that steroids affected your cardio negatively when you were on them?
First time I ever did them, yeah, I did, because I just carried a ton of muscle mass, just mass that shouldn't have been there, because I didn't need that much horsepower.
For the bodybuilders out there, I know you don't approve of this, but I know they always want to know, what was the best, most effective cycle for you?
Oh gosh, man. You know what I did? It was progressive. I remember the one cycle that I did. I started with a harder, like a Dianabol. Starting with a harder anabolic. And then moving from that to ones that kind of lean you out. So I remember one packed on a bunch of weight on me, and then the next one that I did kind of thinned me out mediumly, thinned me out, and then the next one I did thin me out to where muscle striations, all of that. And then I remember the last thing that I took was something called haloteston, which is they used to have a nickname for it. The pill was green, and they used to call it the green meanie. Because it just gave you a disposition of like a caged honey badger.
So in your experience, there is the roid rage, because some people will deny that actually happens.
You can. I mean, hormonally, insulin's a hormone. You give me the wrong amount of insulin or don't feed me and have my blood sugar go up and down and put me behind the wheel of a car, I'm an asshole. Realistically, and somebody go, oh, you just haven't eaten. You eat, you go, oh shit, I feel better. because it affects your hormonal levels.
What was your diet usually like during your prime years?
Shit, man. I ate, I call them hard and soft meals. So I would eat 4 hard meals, 4 soft meals, and then I'd have good snacks in between. So like get up in the morning and have a protein shake. I go to the gym and work out. After the workout, I would eat again, and that would be getting the right amount of protein, right amount of carbs and all that. And then I would rest, eat again, go to the gym, eat again, rest, go to the gym, eat again, go to the gym, eat again, eat again. So I would eat just basically it'd be about every 2.5 hours.
Wow. Lots of protein, I guess.
Ton. And the only way that I could accomplish that was having, some hard meals and soft meals. So literally you would get, so I'd have to eat 4 hard meals. So I'd have like chicken, broccoli, and something else, or and then drink 4 meals a day. Because there's no way me personally, I could eat 8 times a day. I just would become absolutely just tired of chicken or beef or flank steak or whatever it is. So it all worked out.
How did you find the Japanese fans compared to the U.S. fans?
Back then, way more educated, way more culturally understanding of like what I was out there was almost like they treated you with like a lot more reverence than American fans. American fans were like, kick him in the balls, and now an American fan knows what they're seeing. They understand the grappling part of it. They understand all of that. So,
what foreign country that you fought in treated you the best when you competed?
Still Japan. I had fun in Brazil. But Brazil culturally is a little bit different than what Japan is.
Do you still follow UFC at all?
In the last 2 years, I started following a lot more. What
would be your advice for young fighters if you could talk to young fighters getting into MMA?
Oh man, this is just it in a nutshell, man. I know it's hard to say just go for your dreams, but it's one where it's like you have a small little window. Anybody that has any aspirations in doing local events, there's no shame in that. There's no shame in doing local events to get the experience of what it is to compete, doing, all of your amateur stuff as much as you can till you actually figure out, I can do this, or all right, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go, work for my dad's carpentry, company, or I'm going to go do this. But once you're in that small window, do everything you can to find out if you actually can do it, and give it everything.
Were you ever part of the Foxcatcher group?
Yeah.
How was your experience there?
Experience with, Dave Schultz was my coach for 3 years. My experience with him was awesome. Dave Schultz was my coach from 1992 till 1996, till January 96, when he was murdered. My experience with him was awesome. I had a good relationship with John DuPont. I had opportunities to stay in the 40,000 square foot mansion there, and train there. They had before our world teams in 1994. The DuPont Foxcatcher Farms was the site of our world training camp. So I was involved.
What was your reaction when that incident happened?
I cried like a baby. There wasn't one person. I was in Russia and competing in a tournament in a city called Krasnoyarsk, and our national team coach pulled us out at like 3 o'clock in the morning and said, "Hey, I got some really bad news. Dave Schultz has been murdered by John DuPont." And all of us, I remember just dropping to my knees. It felt like somebody had just like kicked me in the solar plex and knocked the wind out of me. It's horrible.
Did you see the Hollywood movie of that?
Yeah.
What did you?
Yeah, I actually spoke with the director He did like an interview with me for like an hour on the phone. Years before the shooting of it, he was just doing his development, and I thought they did a good job. I thought they did I thought Stephen Carell did an incredible job playing John. And Dave Schultz, Mark Ruffalo. I thought it was very well done.
Did you know Kurt Angle at all?
Yeah. I competed against Kerr.
Oh yeah, you beat him, didn't you?
Yeah.
I asked you last time. Yeah. But he was training at Foxcatcher for a while too. Were you guys there together?
Oh yeah. So it's even crazy. You never asked me that.
Yeah.
You asked me to compete. So my first international trip with USA Wrestling was the 1992 World Cups. In the fall of 1992, Kurt Angle was the number one spot at 220, and him and I were wrestling, and he popped his knee. He didn't completely like shred his knee, and they brought me along on the trip just in case he couldn't make it for all the different matches. Kurt was the bomb, man. I thought I was going to be a weight class below him, but once I stopped cutting weight in college, I was like, holy crap, man, him and I have the same weight class.
Yeah, I'm actually interviewing him in April.
Oh, he's a good dude, man. Good dude. He's sober now,
Yeah. How did you end up finally sobering yourself up? It's so hard to clean yourself up. Especially when you're a celebrity.
It's difficult. You know what's really... So, it's difficult if you're a dad working at Subway. It's difficult if you're, it's difficult for any partner. For me personally, it was just, I had just had enough. And the options were becoming less and less and less and less. And what that meant for me is, the option to use or drink and stuff had whittled down to where it stopped working for what was going on with me emotionally. So the only other solution would have been putting a handgun in my mouth, and that wasn't a solution because I had a kid. And so, it was like, I'm going to do everything I can, and I'm willing to do whatever I can to get sober.
What was the lowest point for you?
Living out of the back of a car, because I was too prideful to ask for help, and it had a case of the fuck it's, where I was, could have easily asked, say, hey man, there's enough people that I knew that if I really wanted to help, and I was sincere about it, they would have said, hey, I got a room for you, or I got a place for you, or but I was too prideful, I was too resentful, so that was probably the low spot.
How did you get involved in the whole Smashing Machine movie?
That was a college teammate of mine, John Greenheld. He ended up approaching me and just saying, "Hey, we're gonna put this thing together." And it ended up being, obviously nobody knew at the time they were shooting it that it was going to be, this epic, incredibly successful, documentary that was going to stand the test of time. So, John knew it was special. I didn't.
Were you paid well for participating?
Usually with documentaries, and it held true for me too, is that the principal, which I was considered, doesn't get paid. And so the only money that I really got from it was when it was developed into a script and the movie rights and my life rights were sold off, which I didn't understand at the time what all that was. And that's what The Rock ended up buying back, was he went out and found out who owned all the different rights that were available for me, and his production company bought them all.
Okay. That movie's hard to find on the internet these days. Is that because
they scrubbed it? They scrubbed it. Yeah.
They don't want people knowing about it.
So when it came out, there wasn't like this fierce. Like as a movie maker, they want people to see your movies, right? And so they let people post it on the internet. They let people, do all these different things with it. And since then, it's been, because you can put, if you own it intellectually, you can have YouTube remove it, or you can have these different providers remove that content.
Right.
And that's what's started to happen.
Did you ever witness any backstage fights in MMA? Because they happen in wrestling here and there. But
I witnessed some. So the most memorable backstage thing I remember is I was cornering Rico Rodriguez for his first or second fight in Japan, and we were in a ring in, God, man, I'm going to say it's Nagoya. Anyways, they were going to have pyrotechnics. They did have pyrotechnics, and in the center of the ring, they were going to have the big pyrotechnic. They explained to this Brazilian fighter, who was the first fight of the night, that he wasn't supposed to turn around and walk across to the ring to get back to the locker room. He was going to exit underneath and then stay there because he was the first fight of the night. He didn't understand all that. So it went from Japanese to Portuguese, right? And then from Portuguese to Japanese. And through that interpretation, it was lost. And so after they did his introduction, he turned around and he walked right over the pyrotechnics. It went up and gave him 3rd-degree burns. From the bottom of his feet all the way till his head. He was in a Tokyo hospital for, I think, 6 months before they could let him get on an airplane and go back to Japan, or let him go back to Brazil.
That's pretty bad.
Oh, it never smelt or never heard anything like that in my entire life.
What's your opinion of Wanderlei Silva, the axe murderer?
It's funny. He even scared me until I got to know him. Once you get to know him, he's a good guy. When you get to be around him, he still has this really standoffish, and it's deliberate, intentional what he does. To have you feel uncomfortable. It's part of his psychological battle that he's constantly waging when you're at a fight event. So I didn't have a problem with it.
As far as John Jones, supposedly he's going to move up to heavyweight.
I'd like to see it.
Fight the winner of Stipe versus Francis Ngannou. You'd like to see it?
Oh, I'd like to see it, yeah. I mean, part of it, and I think I said this in one interview before. I said the thing that sucks about being a John Jones fan is all the time that he wasn't allowed to fight. How many fights did we miss as fans, right?
Yeah.
How many matchups did we miss because he was tested positive for this, did that, did this? We probably could have had another 6, 8, 10 fights of him at light heavyweight. So, as a fighter, you need new motivation, and I get it for him that he's going to take it on. And he's talented enough, and he still has enough time in his window that if he's going to do it, he can do it. But Stipe is no joke. Stipe is no joke.
Do you think Stipe is going to get past Francis Ngannou?
I hope so, because Stipe was an Ohio guy, right? I hope so. Coleman's trained him before, and worked in his camp before. I hope he does, but it's a big ask, either way. But if he does, you talk about somebody with confidence. If he's able to get by that, man, he would look at John Jones like, dude, I'm going to put you back in the weight class you deserve to be in. That would be his attitude. And he's big enough where if Jones comes in and he's not ready, that's you might be a quicker guy, but man, if he can get a hold of you, you're in trouble.
Are you surprised at how easily you beat Dan Bobish?
Yeah, I was actually. Because most guys that are built like that, man, they're hard to move and hard to take off their spot. Just really, really difficult.
What are your thoughts on Ken Shamrock?
I like Ken. You know, so on Pluto TV, they had the reruns of Bellator fights here in the States, right? Yeah. And I'd never seen it until probably like 6-7 months ago. His fight against Chemo.
Yeah.
I like Ken. Like I said, never had any problems with him. Hung out with him, partied with him, you know, did all that stuff. But he just looked like, you know, like I would have been. You know, if somebody offered me $500,000 to get in there with Chemo and talk shit and all this other, sure.
Chemo's actually a really good guy. I interviewed him recently. I was surprised what his attitude's like. He's very religious and very calm. Yeah. I
would have never figured that.
Yeah. He's a nice guy. Who hit the hardest, in your opinion?
Volchanshin did. Volchanshin just hit like a rock, man.
What were some of your best gym lifts in your prime?
I always had a big squat. Always had a huge squat. I mean, I was squatting, you know, I can get north of, you know, I can squat 700s and, you know, get reps with 700s. You know, 705, 725, 735. You know, I mean, shake like a bitch. You know, I used to watch Kevin Randleman take like 675 and rep it 4 times. You know, his ankles would hurt so bad after we would get on the squat rack. Oh God, man, he would literally have to sit with ice bags on him at the end of the night.
Thoughts on GSP, and do you think that he's going to come back and fight Khabib? They've been talking about it for so long.
God, man, I would like to see it. I've always been a big GSP fan. He's always carried himself incredibly well and just incredibly talented, man. I mean, just incredible. I mean, realistically, like, I don't hear up worship many fighters, but he's like one of the fighters I'm like, dude, you've been doing it right. You know, just been doing it right for a long time.
What do you think about Josh Barnett, another wrestler slash fighter?
Yeah, I like Josh. I like him. And he's actually, you know, again, one of those things where if he had a couple blips come up in his fighting career, he could have been on. He could have defended the heavyweight belt. You know, he could have got the heavyweight belt defended and kept the heavyweight belt for as long as he wanted. I mean, tenacious.
What about Conor McGregor? He just came off a bit of a surprising loss.
Just came off an ass whooping.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a surprising loss. He'd be the first one to tell you. It's like, surprising loss is, you know, slipped on the canvas and came up and the guy was throwing a head kick. That's a surprising loss. Or, you know, bounced on the ring and came over and you got caught with a hook, right?
Right.
That's a surprising loss. He just got his ass whooped.
Do you think he's going to fight Diaz next, or do you think it's going to be a Poirier rematch?
It has to be a Poirier rematch. It just does, because one, you could go, man, that much time off, ring rust, all this other stuff, wasn't prepared, all that. But Poirier's not the same fighter he was when they fought back in 13 or whenever they fought. And he's developed a methodology. So he, you know, obviously he looked at all the film of McGregor and he just dissected in his training camp, put together a beautiful game plan. This is what you need to do to beat him, and they beat him. So Conor McGregor needs to take that page out of that book and go, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to study, because he has the financial resources and everything to be able to do whatever he needs to do. So I hope he's not done.
What fight are you most proud of?
You know, still it goes back to the beginning. Probably the Fabio Gugel fight, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Hugo Duarte, and that was another one. You know, Enson Inoue, that was another one. Enson Inoue was after I got sober. You know, I didn't know what kind of fighter I was going to be, all this other stuff. So that was a big test for me as well.
Thoughts on Randy Couture?
Always liked him. Competed against him, always older. You know, Randy's just he's just a classic dude.
If you could change one thing about your fighting career, what would it be?
Gosh, man. It's hard to live with regrets, but I think the one thing would be to have more truth tellers around me. You know, like, you're full of shit. Shut your mouth. It ain't reality. You know, just if I would have more genuine truth tellers around me, I think that, you know, at one point my career went this way. I think it could have went that way, and I could have, you know, competed for, you know, a bunch of different UFC belts.
What do you think about Tank Abbott? He lives in Arizona now too. He lives in Scottsdale.
Get out of here.
Yeah, he's a neighbor of yours. I'm going to see him on Monday.
God. Everyone from California is moving here.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, cost of living in California is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, tell Tank I said hi.
I will.
I've always liked him. Always liked him. You know, back then they needed characters more than they needed competitors. The UFC did, and he was a character. He was the first one to tell you. He was a character.
And what about Dan Severin?
Always liked Dan. Always liked. You know what's really crazy about that? Like Dan was like the first person put in space, right?
Yeah.
Didn't know really what it was. I mean, hell, they had Jim Brown and Jeff Blacknick as the commentators. You know, they had a guy show up with a bare fist and a boxing glove. That gives you an idea of, like, nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew. So for Dan to get involved with going, hey, I got this thing, it's not pro wrestling, like, it's real, like you're really gonna fight. There's no weight classes, and there's really no time limit, and there's only like 2 rules. And for him to go, okay, I'm in. It's just crazy.
Any message you want to say to the fans here as we wind this down?
You know, just keep looking. I'm gonna do this again. Either I'm gonna come to you.
I'm gonna be back here. The weather's a lot nicer here than Canada.
So no, just keep looking, man. We got some good stuff coming up. You know, hopefully I'll get a little bit more active on my social media in the next, you know, couple months here, and just look for some good stuff to come out.
You think we'll see you on Joe Rogan anytime soon?
I'm hoping. We have WNA, which is William Morrison Agency, which is huge, and put the feelers out there as we get a little bit farther along in the production of the Smashing Machine, that we'll be able to get on the show and have Joe just kind of do what Joe does.
Do you have any social media where people can follow you?
I'm getting better. Instagram, it's Mark Kerr TSM, the Smashing Machine, and then on Twitter, which I'm not really active on. Facebook, I'm active on Facebook, but Instagram is probably the easiest way to kind of pop in, pop out, and on Facebook.
Last thing, is there any fighters that were particularly helpful to you for your growth as a fighter?
You know, believe it or not, even though we were competitors, Mark Coleman, you know, Mark just had a genuine attitude that I didn't have. That he was like, hey, dude, this is, you know, basically you have to eat nails. You know, you have to suck it up. When he came here, he didn't stay in a fancy hotel. He stayed in a low-rent hotel. It wasn't because he didn't have money, because he needed to go, dude, I want to get dirty. You know, I want to get to the bottom of, like, who I am. You know, no comforts. You know, we're going to train like cavemen. So, you know, Mark's been a big influence, and Boss Rubin.
Oh, Boss. I didn't ask you about Boss. He's another great guy. I like him.
Oh, God, man. That's a whole... I could spend an hour talking about him.
Yeah. Maybe you could tell us one story about Boss.
Oh, God, man. Well, he doesn't drink like this anymore, but I think I said something to you before. It's like when he was cornering me over in Japan for my first fights, he had drank, I think it was like 27 or 28 beers in coach, and I was up in business class, and they stopped serving him, and he came up into business class, and he just kind of sat on the edge of my seat on the armrest, and he was like, you need to order me a couple, talking like no slur, no nothing, give me a couple beers. And I was like okay, like not knowing him, like I'm not gonna ask the why.
Yeah.
And so, like, gave him a couple beers, he brings him back, and then finally the stewardess came up to me going, you can't give them to him. I was like, why? Because we cut him off. He's back there smoking. Like back then, they used to still have 2 rows in international flights that were smoking rows. Like if you sat in these rows, you could smoke.
Yeah.
And so the woman says, the stewardess says, you can't give them to him because we stopped serving him. And I was like, well, he's my coach. I need to keep him happy. And she's like, no, we're not serving you if you're going to give them to him. That was one. And then the other one, you had to be seated if you were smoking. And so boss is seated on the armchair again. And the stewardess is like, no, you can't smoke. You need to be seated. And then he goes, I am. Thank you. So those are my stories. Who's going to say anything, right?
I didn't know he had that side to him.
Oh, God, man. He had a very hardcore party side. You know, he's not like that anymore. I mean, he even
still smokes though.
Even like that, right?
Yeah.
He would be up in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and give you everything he's got. Training you, everything he's got. He didn't skip a beat, man. He would hold the pads, hold the tie pads, hold the mat, hold the bags, whatever he needed to do, he was there. I mean, spot on, man. Never missed a beat. Incredible.
Wow. I didn't even realize he trained you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, good dude, man. Solid.
I'll let you close this off by saying whatever you want.
Follow me on Instagram. I'm getting more active. And I just really appreciate Hannibal and everything that he's done, and him taking the time to sit here and talk with me, and for me to be able to answer some fans' questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.